In the past few years, we've heard the term free agents and been told we would all need to become one in order to succeed. The recent economic structures have helped to promote this concept as reality. Where do we get the tools to take control of our career path in the present and future? Welcome to the Career Confidante with your host, Marie Zimenoff. Marie and her guest experts are here to provide you with the tools you need to move forward and achieve your career goals. Now, here is Marie Zimenoff.
Hello and welcome to the Career Confidante, and we're glad that you're here today. And you are going to be glad that you're here today because we are switching it up a little bit. And today we're going to talk about the top trends in careers, what you need to know if you are searching for a job or if you're a career services provider and you're helping people with that. What's the latest in the career space and what do we need to be aware of? And these are topics that we cover every week in our newsletter. So we've got a newsletter that we send out to thousands of career services providers around the globe. And if you want the specific information as we go through these, you're like, yes, I want to be able to read those links for myself, you can always join our list and get these in your newsletter every week, in your email every week. You just got to go to ctlrwalogistics.com and then /join career trends. So what is going on in the career space today? That's what we're going to talk about. What are there some of the new trends and new lingo? And it's always something new. If you haven't heard of it, the latest buzzword, and I don't love that these come up, we had the Great Resignation, and now it's the Great Talent Stagnation is what it's being called. I think they keep trying to use the same kinds of terms over and over again. But this is the idea that there is a skills mismatch that's been happening for a while. And there's a ton of open jobs, but they tend to be in a lower skilled jobs, lower paid jobs. Some of them are in the hospitality industry, restaurants, those types of things. So we have these jobs that people can't fill. And if you in the US have tried going out to eat recently, you know that it's hard for restaurant owners to find talent, to find people to work for their organization. And then we have places where people are sitting unemployed for months and months, and long-term unemployment is a real thing in some of the white collar, the higher end paying jobs, if you will, tech and some similar positions. So this is causing a challenge, right? It's causing some long-term unemployment. It's causing some frustration from employers who can't hire people. And then it's causing the organizations that don't have very many openings, the people who are still there aren't leaving because there's no jobs for them to move to. And that's where we're kind of coming up with this great stagnation. So what we know here in the US, at least from the April job numbers, is that there were kind of an increase, they call it non-farm payroll employment, right? So we did have an increase and we had an unemployment rate that was holding steady, but that doesn't really capture what's going on. So where are the job gains? You're seeing job gains in healthcare, social assistance, transportation, warehouse, those things that, we know are not as interesting, especially to some of our white collar colleagues who are getting laid off. So how do we make that switch? How do we connect those dots? And if we're working with someone who may be in that white collar field and can't find a job at their level, how could they use the growths in those other sectors to their advantage? Because those other sectors hire people like them too. So there might be some opportunity in those companies, even though it may not be the industry that they're coming from. If they can use the same skills, they could hop into those industries that are growing. Then, of course, we've got people who are in the more in-demand jobs, but they're wanting to maybe move up in salary or get out of something that's a little bit more labor-intensive And how do they make that step up, leveraging those same skills, perhaps even staying inside those same organizations, but figuring out what that next step looks like for them? What else do the businesses need where they could use their skills, but take that step up in pay, in responsibility, in the knowledge work field instead of the hands-on work? And of course, we're seeing a lot of talk, especially in the university realm, both here in the US and in Europe, around the importance of apprenticeships, these jobs that, may not be white collar, they might be blue collar jobs, but they're great jobs. They pay well, they have longevity, they're not necessarily hard labor jobs. When we look at the skilled manufacturing jobs that are and have been growing the last few years since COVID and supply chain disruption, could we help our clients get into those types of jobs? Now, similar related information here when we talk about labor market is that we've got inflation that is still happening. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that that means the hourly earnings for all employees across the board decreased just a tiny bit because of that inflation. So we might be seeing some raises, but we're not getting the raise we need to keep ahead of inflation. And that's important for people to realize. They may be getting lower offers. It is still perfectly acceptable to negotiate. You always want to think about what will happen if you negotiate and that offer gets pulled. That is a possibility, although recent research shows it's not very common. It is possible. So we've got some resources that you can go back and listen to some of our shows on salary negotiation. Always want to take a collaborative approach to that and show willingness to collaborate and adapt, but also don't be afraid to ask for that increase, to ask for what you have researched as an appropriate range for that role and how it aligns with your experience. In Europe, found this past week an article came out talking about how we have a little bit of growth happening in Europe, but it's kind of a slower growth. So inflation slowed there as well as in the US. And we're seeing a little bit of, some growth there, although, this is a very tepid and description of this, that it is growing, but there's still a long ways to go, especially for our European colleagues that have been in a recession, maybe a little bit more here than in the US. So what can we do with that labor market information when you think about how you use that information to help your clients? We're looking at industries. Where are the pockets of excellence that they might be able to find? How could they leverage their experience into those industries that are growing? We're looking at setting expectations, understanding that they may see salary offers that are smaller than they were seeing a year ago, but that doesn't mean there's not room to negotiate. And then thinking about how these other aspects are playing into career. So when we look at trends, we see that people are nervous about automation. Well, how could I turn that into a positive for myself as an employee, as a job seeker? I can show that I've been using technology, that I'm comfortable, that I'm taking classes, that I'm learning. I mean, there's so many free classes now about AI, and you go to LinkedIn Learning, you can get them free for a month. You go to Google and you can see some free classes that Google and Microsoft both have free classes on AI. So if you can be that candidate that is not necessarily using it to write their materials, because we've seen that a high percentage of recruiters are nervous about that. So you can use it to write your materials, but you want to make sure that it's your stories, it's your specific what you did that's getting in there, not just what AI says somebody who does your job does. But it's more talking about how you can use the technology in your job, showing classes that you've taken to get up to date on these technologies. That's what they're wanting to see, so that you are demonstrating your you're demonstrating your expertise in the technology and willingness, even if it's not expertise, just willingness to learn. Then, of course, we're seeing not just technology related skills, but other skills where that skills gap is happening. And you can look at job descriptions in your field. We were talking about in our live stream a couple of Tuesdays ago. So if you go over to YouTube, go to Career Thought Leaders YouTube, there's a video, the most recent one posted with myself and another lady, Denise Bittler, where we're talking about how you can use online resources and of course job descriptions to really understand what the skills are that your organizations are looking for, and then work those into your documents, your interview answers, all of those things going together. You've got to do the research, understand what skills are in demand, and then be able to speak to those. One of the things I'm seeing a lot is people doing more side hustles. And if we kind of go back and forth on this, in 2018, side hustles were on the rise, and it felt like it was out of necessity. It was kind of like, because I have to. And then in 2020, a lot of the side hustles were a bit more because I wanted to. I wanted to explore something else. I wanted to maybe get out of the house, meet other people, whatever it might be. Now I feel like we're transitioning back into this have to phase where people are doing side hustles because they need the money or because they are unemployed and they're trying to use that to build a bridge, which is a great, it can be a great way to build a bridge to a new career, to do that side hustle, do some contract work, do something independently. So we're just seeing more of that. And if you're thinking about doing more of that type of work, feel free to drop us a note. You can send me an email at Marie, Marie at careerthoughtleaders.com, or you can shoot me a message on any of the messaging platforms, any of the social media platforms, either to our Career Thought Leaders account or to my personal account. And we've got a little checklist that walks you through deciding if independent work is a good fit for you, some things to consider to set yourself up for success if you decide to go that direction. So shoot me a message. I'll be happy to send you that one pager and to think about, or if you're a coach, it is great coaching questions to help people think about if that's a good fit for them. So shoot me a message and let me know that you would like that sheet on deciding if independent work is right for you. So we're starting to see that happen in the workplace because people need to do that. And it goes right along with the idea that work is becoming more globalized. We can work from anywhere depending on the tax structures. We've got a lot more opportunity. That doesn't mean, though, that remote work is going to be easy to find. We've seen a shift over the last 2 years or so where there was a lot of remote jobs, and now those postings have shrunk considerably, but the amount of people looking for them has stayed the same. So you're going to find very high competition for anything that is a 100% remote job, and you're just not going to see very many of those anymore in the US, at least. Many of them have moved to being hybrid, where you've got to be in a certain vicinity to the organization to be able to come in on a regular basis for your job. So it doesn't mean we can't look for remote work. We just have to be aware that it may create a little bit of more challenge in our search when we're really wanting that remote work because that's what everybody else wants to. So yes, we're seeing more opportunity because of those global changes, but not as much. So that's what we're seeing in terms of the labor market. You are seeing more openings when you look at the overall job numbers, but that's a kind of a teeter-totter where a lot of openings are in the jobs that not very many people want, and we're seeing fewer openings in some areas of desirable work. So researching what types of industries are doing well, researching what types of industries are doing well in your geography, because again, we're moving to more location-based jobs again, where it's either hybrid or local. So that means you want to do that research and really understand what is going on in that industry and where will you plug in to be able to make that fit. All right, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about our next trend related to this week in the global career space. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
Follow Voice America at facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
You know that the career landscape has changed and that you need to be proactive about managing your career. You can have the foresight, skills, and confidence you need to take charge of your career and seize opportunities. A strategic advantage and career expert, Marie Zimenoff has helped thousands of leaders like you get focused, get found, and get hired. Visit getcareersmart.com to find out more. That's getcareersmart.com or call 800-521-2080 to schedule your complimentary consultation.
Voice America programs are now available on your favorite connected device, including Amazon, Alexa, and Google Home. Through streams with Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio, listening to your favorite show is as easy as saying the show name followed by the word podcast.
Hey, Alexa, play Finding Your Frequency podcast.
If that doesn't work, try adding on TuneIn or on iHeartRadio or on Apple Podcasts.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are tuned in to the Career Confidante with Marie Zimenoff. If you have a question or comment for Marie or her guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to marie@strategicadvantage.com. Now, back to the Career Confidante.
Hello and welcome back to the Career Confidante. And today we've been talking about some trends in the workplace. We were just talking about labor market trends and in the US and Europe, which is where some of the data that I was getting in the last week was coming from. You know, in future weeks, we'll talk about other geographic areas as well. The other piece of what's going on right now, of course, in many countries around the globe, you're having graduations from college and more research and talk coming around about the next generation. And I don't know if they timed it this way, but also a Deloitte global study of 23,000 participants, which talks about what's going on with Gen Z and millennials. And this research kind of pairs again with the information around graduation and how people are hiring those age groups right now. And maybe not the most rosy picture everywhere, but we are seeing some information about hiring out of the UK, at least, that graduate hiring is a little bit cooler in the UK market. Haven't seen any recent data yet for the US market, but we'll keep our pulse on that and see what they say. But let's dive into some of the findings from this Gen Z and millennial survey that Deloitte Global did. If you are a coach or a professor or a parent, you're probably seeing some of these things. And so it might be helpful to know that they are not just your student, your child. And the financial insecurity is something that I think every generation goes through at this age group. So there are some things that are generational and there are some things that are developmental. So everybody goes through the same kinds of phases, whether, no matter what generation they are, at the same time. But then there's specific things that this generation is facing as they go through this challenge. And I'm seeing a lot of talk about mental health and insecurity, anxiety that's related not just to this financial piece, but also to the bigger questions about life. So more than any other generation before them, they're questioning having children, not having as many children. They're living at home. They're struggling financially. They're nervous about their job, their career growth. Again, some of that is developmental. It's going to happen it happened with everyone that age. And some of it is just impacted more by the uncertainty. You think about these folks, many of them were in college or high school during COVID, had those major parts of life disrupted, and now trying to figure out how to move forward with the general feeling we've all gotten that things are just more unpredictable even than we knew they were. And that's a challenge for all of us. What we have seen in, I would say, younger millennials and Generation Z is a thirst for activism. So we're seeing ethical alignment to the job being important. And this is true right now for everyone of every age, but we're seeing it particularly with that group even more. And the speaking up for their values, wanting to be at companies where that's okay, wanting to be at universities where that's okay. We're seeing that happen across the US right now with the young people wanting to show their feelings about what's going on in the world, and universities trying to figure out how to handle that. Companies, you're next. They're going to come and want the same opportunities to express their beliefs and their viewpoints and be activists within those walls as well. And saw some article about Gen Z wanting to go into the office, and then articles from HBR talking about how to launch remotely, because these are the challenges of this generation. They want to be engaged. They want to be involved. They don't want to sit at home with their computer for some, not, of course, not a blanket statement, but many of them have done that enough. Thank you very much. They're ready to go into an office and be engaged. And of course, there's a lot of research that shows that that is better for their career. So they want to go in and be engaged in those activities in the workplace so that they can grow their career. And companies are still trying to figure out how to manage all of that, because, of course, we all want flexibility. We all want kind of what we want when we want it. And yet the company still has to keep operating. The other thing we're seeing, of course, is technology and automation really impacting the future of their careers in a way that it didn't even impact mine 10 years ago, because you now have it so much more apparent that the job you choose today likely won't be around 10 years from now. And how do you manage your career when the horizon is so short, right? We don't even know what it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years. I heard that, I don't know, someone from Google, Microsoft kind of laughing when someone asked them to predict where technology would be in 3 to 5 years, because we really don't even know how things will look in a year. They're moving so quickly. And this makes career management for all of us, but particularly for those at the beginning of their career, very challenging. And I'd encourage you to think about adopting that learner mentality from the very beginning, or from right now, if you're even mid-career or late career. How can you stay on top of what's going on in your field? How can you stay on top of what's going on in the trends? Find your professional associations, I'm going to use influencers in air quotes, because it's not about how popular they are. It's about those people who are really staying on top of the trends and communicating them out, so that you don't have to try to know everything. You can have a few informers. Maybe that's what we'll call them. Instead of influencers, they're informers. A few informers that can help you stay up on the trends. And that's what this show was originally created for, was to help people have the tools and the knowledge that they needed to be agile in their career. But of course, we can't cover every single sector. So it's important for you to find those people inside your industry, your just desired industry, that can help you stay up on the specifics for your industry. And you can know what skills are you needing to build right now, and have a community network that you can engage with to figure out where's the best place to get that training, get the information, get the content, but then also the community is helping you process that content and stay engaged and learn. We don't just learn by, reading or listening. We learn by engaging with people around the topics. Why I love when we go live every Tuesday around the careers topics and people join in and they're commenting, they're engaging. You learn so much more that way. And that's part of what you want to find for your career, for your industry, are those places where you can do that, where you can connect in and find that community. So the trends that we're seeing with this audience, they're a reflection of what's happening across other age groups as well at this time, but they are going to impact those of us at different stages of our career differently. And if you are a leader, it's important to think about what these new generations, millennials are leaders in most companies these days, since we're mid-30s to mid-40s now. But how is that shifting what you need to do as a leader? And how is that shifting what you want to do for your company to have new talent coming in on a regular basis, to attract talent, to keep talent? It's going to look different today than it did even 5 years ago because of the way that we are all wanting to work and wanting to move forward. Okay, so another important thing that's happening right now is a lot of talk about layoffs. Now, layoffs, if you look at the data, the layoffs have stayed fairly steady. Now, that's kind of high steady, not great, but we are seeing in the U.S., there was the 2023 kind of spike in layoffs. And now 2024, 21% of companies are planning or estimated to do a layoff. So it's not any bigger than it was last year. Last year was a spike. But there's some myths out there about layoffs that are important for us to go through. And so these actually come from a link by Engagedly. And again, if you want all the links for these articles, send us a message or go on to ctlrwalogistics.com and join Career Trends. So ctlrwalogistics.com/join Career Trends. That's where you can go and sign up, and you'll get all of the links for these studies as well as future ones. So this one is talking about the layoffs. And if you're a young person, you may have never been laid off before, or if you're in the beginning of your career. So what does that mean? What do layoffs mean? Sometimes people confuse getting laid off and being fired. Being fired is when you're fired for cause. You might have been put on a performance improvement plan and had things written down that you were supposed to improve, or sometimes if a company isn't that structured, that they may not do that and you may get fired for cause, or if you do something that is egregious and causes that. Layoff is that the company does a downsizing or restructuring, usually because of financial goals, business strategy, moving parts of the organization, reorganizing. That's a layoff. And it's important that you understand the terminology and that you respond appropriately. So if someone asks me, have you ever been fired? I would say no, because I haven't been. But I have been part of a layoff. Those are two different things. And usually you don't explain a layoff. So when people say, why'd you leave your last job? And you say, oh, the company did a downsizing or a layoff. Usually no one's asking you to explain that because that's just what companies do in this day and age. And typically there's no particular reason for it. So it can be related to performance, but not always. Usually it's related to sometimes tenure at the company, usually related to which business unit is being downsized or restructured or whatever it might be. Sometimes it might be related to skill sets that fit into the new direction or not. So it's not anything to do with your performance, which means good performance won't keep you safe, and bad performance might not necessarily mean you get laid off first, although I'm not sure that's something any of us strive for. When you are getting laid off, it's important to understand the whole process. What are you being offered? What is the process? If you got to sign something, make sure you read it first. If you have any accessibility to a lawyer to get that looked at before you do, that would be advisable. And you can negotiate severance. So many companies will offer a severance, some won't. Never hurts to ask, what is my severance package? And they might say, well, we don't have one, but at least you've asked. When you think about the layoff in a company, the strange thing is that oftentimes they're hiring at the same time. This doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad company just because they laid off and now they're hiring. It might be, again, that business transition, the skills transition. They may have offered people the opportunity to make a move and they didn't want to. So we don't want to assume that they were ill, that they were doing things in a bad way. And we are seeing companies who are laying off because people don't move back to the office. And the latest one I heard of was Walmart, kind of trying to bring in their hybrid employees back to the mothership, if you will. It's just going to happen. And if people don't want to move, they don't want to move. So yes, they might be laying off, but that doesn't mean that it's a negative in general. It may be a negative for you if you don't want to live where the company's headquarters are. Always want to do your research, understand as best you can why they did the layoff, and then understand what might be next. So if you are in those younger age groups, you might not have experienced that yet. And your first time, if you will, it can be scary. So thinking about if you are paying attention to your industry, you're paying attention to your company. So we talked about that already. You are listening in to any kind of all company information. You're reading your company newsletters. You're paying attention to what's going on in the broader industry. Hopefully those things won't come as much as a surprise. We can't always be prepared. So we have to figure out how to not take it too personally, how to move through it in the best way that we can, how to leverage our network. So one of the things that's happening in companies who are laying off now, even if they can't provide a severance or outplacement, which you definitely want to take advantage of, they're creating networks, places where their company individuals can stay connected with other people who are laid off, or sometimes even with people who are still working there, so that you can take advantage of the connections that you've made, and everybody can help each other make new connections. So if you are in that situation, or even if you think you might be in that situation, starting to network, starting to maintain your connections, starting to move those connections outside of your work emails solely is going to be important. Okay, so we're going to take another short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about recruiting trends and LinkedIn and ways that you can improve your LinkedIn presence, what recruiting is doing right now to stay connected with that, and then how you can be more emotionally fit to manage all of this uncertainty and transition. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
Voice America is on your favorite smart speaker. If you have Alexa or Google Home, go ahead and give us a try.
Hey Alexa, play Finding Your Frequency podcast on TuneIn.
You know that the career landscape has changed and that you need to be proactive about managing your career. You can have the foresight, skills, and confidence you need to take charge of your career and seize opportunities. A strategic advantage and career expert, Marie Zimenoff has helped thousands of leaders like you get focused, get found, and get hired. Visit getcareersmart.com to find out more. That's getcareersmart.com or call 800-521-2080 to schedule your complimentary consultation.
A little birdie told me Voice America is on X. Follow us at Voice America TRN.
Are you a business owner, 1099 contractor, part-time employee, or volunteer who needs group health coverage you can actually afford? Do you know a nonprofit who would benefit from unlimited zero-cost funding? How about cost reduction, school safety, mental health wellness, and more? All these and more are fair game on Finding Certainty. If you want more certainty in your own life, you are not alone. Join us each Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern on the Voice America Business Channel. Find your own brand of certainty and realize your personal American dream with Finding Certainty, hosted by Patrick Lang. Let's unwrap the certainty experience together.
Voice America Business Network, the bottom line in business.
You are tuned in to the Career Confidante with Marie Zimenoff. If you have a question or comment for Marie or her guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to marie@strategicadvantage.com. Now, back to the Career Confidante.
Hello and welcome back to the Career Confidante, and we've been talking about some trends today. And we want to talk a little bit about automation in recruiting. And recruiting is a challenging conversation. People don't want it to be automated, but yet there's just no humanly way possible that people can do all of that work. So we're in a place right now where job seekers are using AI to apply, which is causing an increase of applications coming in for recruiters. And so they are trying to use technology responsibly to get through those applications. But one of the things that we hear a lot is that, a human is not looking at your application. And that may or may not be true, but it doesn't happen as often as you think. So most of the technologies can rank or rate an applicant, but most of them do not auto reject someone. Why? Because the systems just aren't that good and people know it. They're not going to have a system auto rejecting someone. Now, the way that you do get an automatic rejection is oftentimes if you answer what they call a knockout question in the way that the recruiter has it set to knock you out. So if I'm asking, are you a U.S. citizen or not, and you answer no, that might send you an automated rejection. If I'm asking, do you have 5 years of experience in X, Y, or Z, and you say no, you might get an automated rejection. Those are the types of knockout questions that might get you an automated response. For the most part, beyond that, a human is looking at your resume or looking at your score of your resume, checking the resume, making sure nothing's off, and then hitting reject. And yes, that might happen really quickly, even for a human, because recruiters that's their job. They're going through it on a constant basis. Now, what we're seeing is that people are using automated sourcing. So this means that I'm using systems like Find Them, Seek Out, even JobVite has, not JobVite, yes, JobVite. JobVite has systems that will go out and find people on the internet who match my criteria. So if I'm looking for a software programmer who's got these languages, has worked for these companies, these technologies can go out and find those people, not just through their LinkedIn profiles, but also through any other web activity that they have. So if they've been on a speaking panel, they've written a paper, they have a profile on a different public social media channel, it will go and it will find them and put them into my sourcing pool. And there's a lot of these systems out there. They're getting more accessible and more people are using them. As I said, then they might also use automation to screen the resume. They are scoring it based on keywords that aren't rocket science, right? The keywords are in the job descriptions. They're scoring your resumes. They're typically pulling in that information from your resume, grading perhaps, and then maybe rank ordering or providing the grade to the recruiter. Depends on how the systems are created. Not all systems score, not all systems rate and rank. It depends on how the company has it set up. Again, very few are going to automatically reject someone based on a low grade because the technology just isn't there yet. And I'm not sure most people really want to trust it for that. We want to look at the resume, do a quick skim, see if we agree that, yes, this isn't a good fit, and then we move forward. Candidate engagement. So HR recruiter are using chatbots and things that help communicate with candidates. They're using more automated kind of assessments. So you can do a skills assessment. You might do even a one-way interview where you're answering questions on video or on voice. And those are really a skills assessment. They're grading your words just like they would your resume. And so they're getting that opportunity to hear more about you based on questions they might ask. And then they're still using a system to score it, like HireVue and other similar interviewing technologies. So that is going on in the HR space. They're doing more of the automation, and automation is getting cheaper and more accessible to different types of companies. Now, what's interesting is to look at how small businesses are using recruiting and what they're doing. Gives us some ideas of how our clients might access, if you're a job seeker, how you might access more interaction with a company. So LinkedIn actually did this study of about 1,500 recruiting professionals in the small or medium-sized businesses, that small and medium-sized businesses are less likely to recruit internally, more likely to believe in pay transparency. So they're trying to share more of what the job is going to pay, and have that job listing, that job posting there. So we're also seeing that small businesses are allowing a little bit more fully remote, hybrid types of arrangements, not a ton more, just a little bit more in terms of flexibility and fully remote than big businesses. So small companies are doing more with free technology rather than investing in a paid system like HireVue or some of those other things. They might be using the same generative AI tools that you or I can access for free. So they're going to be using more of the same tools that we can use, which makes it maybe a little bit easier to anticipate interview questions that you might get, because they're using the same tools that you and I can use. So when we think about, yes, they might be using something like LinkedIn Recruiter, but it's more likely they're using free or lower cost tools or a lower cost account in LinkedIn where they're using the same search that you or I can do as a career account or even as a free account. And so you can see and anticipate how they might be looking for you. And that's really important when we think about the ways that you job search, that recruiters are using multiple different methods to find you. But we oftentimes get stuck in thinking about the biggest businesses. How are the big businesses hiring? Well, they don't have the same numbers that small, medium-sized businesses do, because there are more small and medium-sized businesses than big businesses. There are more people that work for small and medium-sized businesses than big businesses. So when you're looking at how to search or how to connect or how to use something like LinkedIn, be careful of getting sucked into just thinking about how the biggest businesses are doing it. Thankfully for LinkedIn, the same kinds of tactics really work for both, although small and medium-sized businesses can be more accessible through networking, connections, comments, engagement than maybe a larger organization would be. So I can go onto LinkedIn and I can think about my profile. Well, the profile aspects that show up in LinkedIn's recruiter software, which is somewhere around $10,000 a seat right now. Not small and medium-sized businesses aren't as likely to be doing that. But if I want to show up in those searches, I'm thinking about keywords, I'm thinking about my headline, my job titles. How am I showing really quickly, especially in those two areas, that I'm a good fit? And those two areas will also be very visible when someone with a normal LinkedIn account looks at my LinkedIn profile. And the keywords will likely be the same types of things that they're searching as someone's using LinkedIn Recruiter to search. And they're, again, not rocket science. You're looking at the job descriptions, you're looking at some of the tools like LinkedIn Explorer that show you the skills that are aligned to a job, the job titles that are most used for jobs. So you can use some of those same tools for your profile, and it will be visible by either big businesses or small and medium-sized businesses. The thing that those small and medium-sized businesses can be a little bit more accessible via networking. So I can find people inside my companies that I want to work at, and I can start engaging with their posts. I can start engaging with their company posts, and I might be a little bit more likely to find someone who will engage back and start a conversation. So as you're looking at the ways that recruiters are working, the tools that they're using, you're thinking, what does that mean for me and in my job search? And this takes us to the last piece here. And this was a Fast Company article on the ways that leaders can improve their emotional fitness. And it's this idea of practice acceptance. I liked this. So we might want to change how hiring happens. We might not love that it's being automated. And in some ways, yes, we can continue to advocate against that. But we can also look at, okay, that's how it's going. What does that mean for me? Or how do I use this to my advantage? How do I use this reality to my advantage? And that's really what I want to do. I want to practice that acceptance. I also love the conscious meaning making. So we decide what meaning we give to facts. And this is particularly true when we look at the labor market information. We can look at it, we can say, okay, these types of jobs are shrinking, these industries are shrinking, and I can keep my focus there. Or I can say, okay, but what's growing? And what can I find that I might be able to plug into? Or, of course, just because an industry is shrinking does not necessarily mean that there'll be less openings in my type of work. I want to question that. I want to dig into that. I really want to research that and understand where the openings might be and resist the urge to react too quickly before I've done my research and dug in. And that all comes around to keeping that healthy perspective, showing gratitude, understanding the good that we do have, challenging ourselves when we start to get that pattern of negative thinking. How can we get out of that? How can we think about other ways to engage with the world and with the information that we're provided? And a few little things that can help. They talked about the power of simple rituals and knowing those things that do bring you comfort while being careful for the things that feel like comfort that are not healthy for us, like an excess of, food or alcohol or any of those things. And then also doing something, they said doing something physical, but I've also read and benefited from doing something with a visual output, a visual change. So something simple, here in my neck of the woods, at least, the weeds are going crazy. We've had tons of rain and the sun's been out. So going out and pulling weeds, especially in an area where it's really visibly obvious when you get done, is a stress reliever, because there's so many things in life where we can't see the end, where it doesn't feel like we've made any progress. But if we can find some of those activities where the progress is somewhat more instant gratification, that can help us keep moving towards the things that don't offer that. We can feel accomplished and say, okay, I can do this. I can keep moving. I can make this happen. So those are some of the tips for this week based on the trends. And we hope you'll come back next Tuesday next Tuesday. On every Tuesday, we're doing Trend Tuesday Lives on the Career Thought Leaders YouTube channel and LinkedIn page. And then every Monday, of course, we're here on Career Confidante, and hope you'll come back and listen in and tell us what topics you'd like to learn more about. You can always reach out to me at Marie, Marie, at careerthoughtleaders.com. And we'll see you right back here again next week on the Career Confidante.
Thank you for listening to the Career Confidante. Marie Zimenoff will return again with another terrific guest next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Business Channel. Be sure to join us then.